Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Friday, all of our guests today are brought to you by our friends at Basant Motors. And this month, all month long, it's the No Tax November event happening at Basant Motors. Let Basant pay the pesky GST on your next vehicle. Purchase with them. Stop by their dealership located at 16315 Fraser Highway in Surrey. Or check them out online at basantmotors.com. Dollywall getting a lot of love for his clarification in our first segment that e-bug is not an actual bug. It's just the shortened version of emergency backup goaltender.
Because some people have said that to
you.
Nobody
said that.
Why are the Canucks calling up a bug?
Nobody has said that. Nobody has said that.
And I told you my 80s elementary school tarantula story at UBC.
You went all the way to UBC to see a
spider. And they'd be in a box. Yeah. And little kids would go, oh my God, there's a tarantula. It was a big deal.
Spiders are gross. I'm
gross.
sorry.
I can't stand them.
Same. Snakes too. Same thing. Yeah. We now pivot to our good pal from the Athletic and Sportsnet 650, Thomas Drance. Thomas, how are you, sir?
I'm a big spider guy. I'm a big fan of spiders.
You like
that? What a shock.
They take care of all the other insects that are worse.
True. Yeah, that's true.
Like they're your friends, and they make a delicious snack when you're sleeping. You eat like 12 a year. Anyway, gentlemen, thanks for having me on. Thanks to the Basant Motors folks for sponsoring this.
Yes.
And for sponsoring the crossover, where I may, for absolutely no reason, get mad at Rick Dollywall. I don't know. You should tune in, though. It's a lot of fun. My bad this week, though. I went after Rick for an argument he hadn't even really made. So I just wanted to come hat in hand, give a dap to my good friend Rick, and a good dap to our good friends at Basant Motors.
It was awesome. If you missed Crossover in 650, download the podcast because it was fantastic. I tweeted about this. It was a record amount of times Dollywall yelled, Thomas! 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 Over and over and over during the conversation.
But Thomas and I will talk on the phone for 45 minutes. Yeah. And there will be yelling. There will be screaming. There will be F-bombs. There will be walking the dog at the same time.
Luna!
No, Leo.
Leo, sorry.
How dare you get my dog's name wrong?
No, my bad. You know what? I was just thinking about the sound. I like tune out the actual words.
That's fair.
Leo!
That's fair.
Leo, get over here.
Thomas, I want to talk about something let's pivot to the Canucks now. I want to talk about something we were talking about yesterday a lot. And on The Athletic, you and Harm recently put out report cards for the forwards and the defensemen and the goaltenders. For the defensemen, sorry, I believe Quinn Hughes got a C+.
Oh wow!
What have you seen from Quinn Hughes to start the season, both on the ice and body language-wise off the ice?
Yeah, so obviously I've been dealing with some personal stuff, so I haven't been around the team the usual way. So I don't want to get too much into the body language because usually I'd have a chance to ask about it, and I don't want to get ahead of sort of saying an opinion when I'm mostly just watching on television or from the press box or just haven't been around the way I usually have. So I'm gonna give myself an NA report card on that and come back to you with more thoughts once I've had a chance to catch up with him at length. What I'm seeing on the ice, though, is a player who, to my eyes, is still doing 2 or 3 spectacular things a game, right? Is still controlling play and is still the best player on the ice a lot of nights. But this is Quinn Hughes we're talking about. Our standard for what Quinn Hughes can do is very high because he's Quinn Hughes, right? Like, I don't just think of this guy as being one of the best defensemen in hockey. I think of him as being one of the most individual or most valuable individual skaters in the game, like one of the 5 most impactful two-way guys in hockey. And when you look at this season, he's got 1 5-on-5 point. I mean, that's not in character for what we've seen from Quinn Hughes when he's at his best. Typically speaking, right? He has 1 goal, so that's a little bit of a slow start for him. He's tended to be something of a slow starter historically. There've been the last couple of years, he's been fast out the gate, but when you look at the balance of his career, he's tended to be a little bit more productive after Christmas over the course of the regular season, so it may just be a matter of that too. As for the two-way play, this team's struggling to control play at 5-on-5, and Quinn Hughes is not dominating in terms of what the shot counter looks like, in terms of the shot attempt differential, in terms of, warping the environment on the ice 5-on-5 so that the Canucks are more likely than their opponent to score the next goal at the same level that he customarily has. Now, this is Quinn Hughes we're talking about, so I'm not looking at the 11 games he's played and saying, well, this is a concern by any means. But I do think it's fair to note that we're used to him playing at a level where he's picking his teeth with opponents that's, of a magnitude greater than what we've seen so far.
Where are we going here, Thomas? We're 15 games in. They're floating around 500. The word rebuild has come up. You talked about it quite a bit this week as well. We all did. But look at Anaheim. They started exactly the time Trevor Linden told this owner to rebuild, and the owner said, no, I'm going to listen to Jim Benning, who said I can fix it in 2 years. And look at the Ducks. Leo Carlson, they're the highest-scoring team in the NHL. 21 and under. They got guys got 50 points. Canucks 21 and under guys got 5 points. Like, what are your thoughts? Will it ever happen in your eyes? Like, where are we going with this?
Well, first of all, I was watching your program before I came on, Rick. So I just want to quickly change the subject, and then I'll come back to your question. How about that?
You go.
I can confirm your original report that Jiri Patera has been called up. I don't have any more details than that, but I just wanted to give it to your show first since you first surfaced the report. I can confirm Jiri Patera called up by the Vancouver Canucks. All right, so getting back to where this is all going and the rebuild question. The reason I think it came up, gentlemen, is because of how this season is shaking out in the West, right? This team didn't play so poorly against the Chicago Blackhawks that talking about a rebuild is like some absurd overreaction, right? This is a conversation that's been simmering in the background in this market for a decade, but especially over the last 5 years. And when you look at the Western Conference standings right now, you see a couple teams really high up in the Anaheim Ducks and the Utah Hockey Club, the Mammoth, that are, looking very credible as playoff teams, and maybe playoff teams with a chance to make noise given the amount of young upside that they've got up and down their roster. You're seeing Macklin Celebrini and the San Jose Sharks. Maybe they're not ready for prime time as a team, but he's leading the NHL in scoring at the moment, or right at the apex of it. And we've seen Connor Bedard and the Chicago Blackhawks. We saw them live on Rogers Arena ice on Wednesday take a huge step forward in terms of looking like a credible NHL team, perhaps with the exception of what they did in the second period against Vancouver. No harm done thanks to Spencer Knight's heroics. So, you look at that context, and it's like these are all teams that for most of the last 5 years, excuse me, have trended to be cellar dwellers, way behind the Canucks, right? Far in the rearview mirror of where this Canucks team was as they sort of sputtered to compete from the middle of the standings year after year. And now there's a sense that have these teams passed the Canucks? And in some cases, maybe they have, and in some cases, they probably haven't, over the course of 82 games. We'll see. There's a lot of time left in this season. And I think that's really where this conversation this week is coming from. It's less about what we're seeing from the Canucks and more about what we're seeing from other markets where, accumulating talent through a patient phase, team building phase, you can call it rebuilding if you want, is paying off and allowing these teams to slingshot up the standings. We're going to see another example of it tomorrow night at Rogers Arena when the Columbus Blue Jackets come to town, right? I mean, that's a team that they made the playoffs in the bubble year, and they haven't since. And they've made a ton of draft picks, and they've made a ton of future forward trades, and they've amassed a really impressive stable of young point-producing forwards. And, that's something that we're not seeing in Vancouver, obviously, even though, Tom Villander's played well, and Braden Coots looks really intriguing, and, Elias Pettersson, the defender, has played great. There's a gap in terms of like the juice that some of these young teams are bringing to the ice on a nightly basis and what we're seeing from this Vancouver team. So, I think it's less about the fact that the Canucks have been struggling with a shorthanded lineup. I think we all understand the context of that. We all understand that right now this Canucks team, the best they can hope for is to survive and get some bodies back, and then hopefully define their season once they're closer to playing with the full deck. But when you look around sort of the balance of power and as it's tilting in this league, it just looks like there's a lot of young teams that have built far more patiently than Vancouver has that seem to be on the rise, whose moment seems to be now. We'll see if that lasts over 82, but I think that's where the conversation's coming from.
Hey, Thomas, I checked in last night. No talks with Kiefer Sherwood. It's just absolutely crickets. They haven't gone to him. It's obviously a wait-and-see approach from the Canucks. Why do you think that is? I
honestly think it's just the timing mechanics here, Rick, right? I think once you don't lock in the guy before the season, and then he goes on fuego, scoring 9 goals in the club's first 15 games, right? I mean, at this point, Kiefer Sherwood can score at a 20-goal pace, which I think is absolutely realistic given his shooting ability generally, but also the fact that he's going to play top 6 minutes for this team over the course of the season, given his performance and given their other options. He's going to keep getting power play time, right? Like, those are things that he hasn't typically got in his career. Yeah. So, forget the shooting hot stuff or will he regress? Like, he can shoot like he did last season over the balance of this year, and he's going to get to 25, 30 goals. Like, that's what a hot start will do for you. And so, that's where Kiefer Sherwood's going to end up, and that changes a player's market value. So for the Canucks anyway, I think with an expiring veteran player, a middle six guy, gritty, plays the game the right way, winner, got that dog in him, all those check marks that you want to see a player hit. I do think you have to wait at this point because A, you don't want to buy at the absolute apex of his value, right? B, I think you want to see where your team is going, right? And have an ability to take a breath and evaluate this team in fairer circumstances and see where you're at in the standings come Christmas, come New Year's Day, right? And then January, you can have your, mid-season meetings and decide, like, do we think that Kiefer Sherwood is an indispensable part of our future, or are we going to need to accumulate picks here and give him a chance to go compete in the Stanley Cup playoffs and earn an even bigger payday if he can score some big playoff goals? And that's sort of the dynamic and the nature of it. I think once he got and ran red hot the way he did, that to me anyway, structurally set this up to be, I don't want to say a grind, but one of those negotiations that's going to exist over a longer time horizon.
Thomas, I have an update for you. Sorry. So basically, the reasoning behind Patera called up. Kevin Lankinen is not hurt. Thatcher Demko may need a maintenance day. They've got back-to-back at home this weekend. The early word is they're being cautious. Now, Canucks Twitter. There's a million. There's a million nut bars on Canucks Twitter. They won't believe it. They'll say Demko's hurt. Oh, Demko's hurt. The nut bars are coming out already. He is not hurt. He is. He might need a maintenance day, and that is it. And Patera flew from Colorado this morning to Vancouver, and so it's a maintenance day thing. Back-to-back home games. But the nut bars are going to nut bar. You know that, Thomas.
Well, especially if Demko doesn't play one of those back-to-back sets, right? Because
hold it.
I mean, we saw earlier on in the season, for example, Derek Forbert missed a game with what was described as maintenance. We haven't seen him since, right? So I not to defend the nut bars, although me, fruit and nut bar is literally my favorite chocolate bar in the universe. But I understand why fans have some level of just overall worry when it comes to Thatcher Demko, given the recent injury history. And so that's it. I understand why there'd be red flags and curiosity about this, even though it is, as you report, surely accurately, nothing major.
Okay. What was that chocolate bar one more time?
Fruit and nut bar? Cadbury?
No, nuts. You like nuts? The chocolate bars?
I've never heard of this chocolate bar.
I do. Fruit and nut bar. You haven't ever had a fruit and nut bar, brother?
No.
Oh, man. Fix that for you. And me and Rick love, we throw all sorts of nuts in a blender every morning, don't we, Rick?
Thomas, almonds and walnuts. 1, 2. Great.
And pumpkin seeds, baby. Don't forget our pumpkin seeds.
And yogurt.
You and me are big on the pepita seeds.
I'm huge on nuts. I grab a handful first thing in the morning, Thomas. First thing in the morning.
I like the spinach too.
Yeah. You guys should start a podcast. The Nut Guys.
Hey, spinach. Every day.
Smoothie time with Rick and Drance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks, Thomas.
Get out of here.
Breaking news for us. We'll talk to you next Friday.
Get out of here.